This is why, when I see someone like Louis C.K., for example, pilloried terribly, I think, well, yeah, he did some things that were unseemly, certainly even by his own standards, obviously. So what do we make of that? Well, there's plenty of people who do unseemly things, but very few of them are as masterful a comedian as Louis C.K. So do we want to lose him because he's flawed?
Right.
It seems inappropriate, because we'd lose everybody that way. And then we just have loss. That's not helpful.
Yes. I mean, I think you're leaning into, a lot of what we call cancel culture today.
Yeah.
Can that, in the name of rehabilitation, do we have to have a world in which we are able to grow and evolve, if that's what we're trying to do? Now, I'm not for repeat offenders or tyrants, but if someone screws up and they sincerely want retribution, I think it's fair to give those people.
Well, it better be, because otherwise we're all doomed.
Right?
Well, absolutely. There's not a person among us who hasn't made repeated errors, and if contrition and repentance aren't sufficient, then we're all damned. Right. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we were continuing our discussion on fame. So you're 25 years into being famous, and you seem to be handling your success,
right,
in a manner that allows you to be pleased about the way your life has unfolded. And so thank God for that. And here you are. You're still here after all these years. And so you've handled your fame well. How come? How could you manage that?
Okay, how can I manage that? Well, big thing for me, and it works for me in my life like this, just getting a click of a word or an understanding will completely change my perspective when I go, oh, that's it. That's true. I'm going to quit banging my head against the proverbial wall. Oh, now I understand. That one big click for me at 7 years was, it ain't personal, it's business. That helped a lot. So now I went, okay, I understand the impermanence of this. Just roll, dance with this guy, dance with it. Next one, that was just sort of a behavioral perspective, even though it sounds like a cool one-liner, was when people would ask, or I would myself run into an inconvenience of fame, a paparazzi or whatever, someone looking over the wall, not be able to go outside. I was like, I'm not going to gripe about it, because that check is already cashed.
Right. That's right.
I can't go back. If it's inevitable, I'm going to figure out a good way to get through this. I then started to say, okay, well, when you're watched in life, Matthew, and a camera's on you, notice how you speed up and you get a little nervous? Well, why don't you look at this like the master acting class? See if you can go out into the world with eyes on you, uninvited eyes, cameras recording, and actually behave and do just the behavior that you went out to do.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in New York City, makeup artist doing my face. My son's 3 years old. He's talking to his favorite thing's fire truck. She goes, well, my husband's the fire captain. He's actually blocks away. You want to have him bring the fire truck over? Downtown New York. Well, that means a lot of paparazzi are going to come, right? But my 3-year-old son doesn't know what paparazzi are, and he gets to see his first fire truck live. Geez, do I go down there and show my son's first fire truck, or do I tell him, no, son, we're not going to see the fire truck because you'll understand it later. There are people with cameras. I'm like, F that, man. My son wanted to see his first fire truck is much more important and came before any right that anyone's got, that inconvenience that comes with my fame. We're going to see the damn fire truck. Well, we go see the fire truck. He sees the fire truck. Cameras all around. He didn't understand what it was. I'm sitting there going like, this was about letting my son see the fire truck. I'm trying to live my life, and I check with myself. I'm not foolish with my fame. I don't open the doors and invite the devils in, or open my, self up and say, yeah, I'm an open book, have a look, come on in. No, I understand. I could be fully taken advantage of, and there are plenty of people who would love to take advantage of that. But I often tell myself, again, who's wagging who? What are your rights, McConaughey, as a human, as a citizen, as the man you are? Don't let those be taken away from you because of something you got along the way, which was fame and inconveniences that come with that. So while I don't advertise, my wife and I say this, we do not advertise ourselves. But if we want to go for a walk in the park or go see that proverbial fire truck and show our child that, we're going to go, let's do it. And we're doing it. And if you want to record us, I call them the Discovery Channel. Record it. You know what? Good use of film, good use of recording. So I've chosen
there is advantages to having eyes on you too, because it does force you to behave.
You can leave your keys in your car in a lot of places because if anyone's going to come rob your car, they're going to document the one trying to rob it. It's a bit of a security blanket on that too. So you see where I've spun a few things here in perspective, not denying the inconvenience, but saying, hey, if this check is cash, here's how I'm going to try and get constructive and do it. And so fame now, it gets me in certain doors. I've had to watch this. Things that I'll say as a famous person can come out in bold print, not just on the printed page, but to people. So I've spoken too strongly and actually hurt people with my words, where maybe I didn't have the emoji to put on the end of the what I wrote with a wink, and they heard it like I was throwing a dagger at them. But I was going, no, I was just tickling you. I didn't mean to hurt you, you know. And what tickled me may bruise somebody else, and my words come out with that weight sometimes. So I have to watch that.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I was a teenager, I got put down by someone who was reasonably well known in public, and it was a misunderstanding, but it burned itself into my memory. And I thought, if I'm ever in a situation where I'm well known, I'm going to remember this so that I don't. And like, had he been an everyday person, let's say, what he said wouldn't have had nearly the impact on me that it did. So, and that is a strange thing to have to realize and to weigh your words that way. I'm cognizant of your time. I know that you have another obligation coming up. And so I thought it might be useful to move towards closing this. People are going to wonder how it was that we came to have a conversation.
Yes.
And so maybe you could shed some light on that. And because I'm curious about it as well.
I got turned on to you from a friend of mine about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I started listening to a lot of what you were saying, and many of the things you said I had been thinking about, but I heard you putting them into words and context. I was like, wow, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to get to. I found, and a lot of it goes back to talk about self-determination, which we've talked about a lot about, and your self-authoring. And then you see a lot of those threads through my book, maybe in a different way, in a more folksy way. But a lot of what you've said gave me confidence to go, I'm going to put my story on paper. So I thank you for that. And that's why I thank you
pleasure.
In the back of the book. You know, I reached out to you, I guess a year and a half ago or so, and you and I chatted, and I've stayed in contact with your daughter. Your definition, one of the great simple things, I said earlier, sometimes just to understanding a word differently. I've always had trouble in a tough relationship, an awkward relationship with many words, but my two that I've had the longest trouble with are vulnerability and humility.
Yeah, those are tough ones.
They're tough ones. So humility, be humble. Well, for decades, be humble. I lost confidence when I was humble. I feigned false modesty. Which I knew at the time, that's arrogant. What are you doing?
Right, absolutely. It's very difficult to have humility without being arrogant about it. Weirdly enough.
You said, and correct me if I misquote you, humility is knowing you have more to learn.
You're either in love with what you know or you're in love with what you don't know, and there's a lot more of what you don't know, so pick your love carefully.
Oh, well, that I went, I purchase. I'm in on that. But for the first time when I see that, I'm not shrinking. I'm actually standing taller.
Mm-hmm.
My heart's higher. My chin's higher. My shoulders are further back.
Right.
I have more courage going forward because, 100%. I can rely on that until I'm gone and maybe even further than that. Yes, I have more to learn. I purchase. But now I can go forward with confidence of actually what I do know, what I have built. I can have more courage. I can forgive easier. I can take responsibility with more courage. I can take care of the things I've built and to attend those gardens better with that understanding of humility. So for that, I thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It's a humility. It's a form of courage.
I want to throw a little funsy out there for you. Okay. So while I was writing, and I've become a fan, which I'd love to continue talking with you more about this subjective I and objective we, and the third eye, sort of the jumbotron of our life. When we hop out of ourselves and have a look, or we project forward in our lives and say, who am I in 10 years? Or what would my eulogy be? You see, I write a lot about these things in the book. But while I was writing, I hopped out. I gave myself the pleasure one night after a few sips, and it was late at night. And mind you, the most trouble, I'm happy to say this, the hardest thing about going to write this book for me was making myself go to bed. I was putting 17-hour days in, and I was just like, you got to get some sleep. But anyway, one of these nights where I was in the fever pitch on fire writing, I wrote down I hopped outside of myself and said, I'm going to write reviews from people that I think this is what they would say about this book after reading it. And this is one of them.
That's a great way to become aware of your audience, or of the audience you want to have. Well, and you have to speak to an audience when you're writing, obviously.
Well, it's a very subjective experience, but I think there is another, as you said, the good thing about talking to oneself in the third person is it's a different view of awareness. Mm-hmm. It's an objective awareness back at like, am I actually doing what I intended to do? Is what I intended actually being recorded? Is what being recorded actually what's being received? There could be a lot of gaps in between those things, and I'm trying to close those gaps, right? So I hopped outside of myself and wrote what I thought you would say about green lights, and Matthew McConaughey, the author. It's entrance level understanding to masterclass psychology delivered in a folk song. I mean, the guy's got the gift of gab, man. What can I say? Jordan Peterson.
That's quite remarkable, because that is very close to what I thought